The sun blazed mercilessly over the Nevada desert, turning the asphalt into a shimmering river of heat. Jason Statham gripped the steering wheel of his silver Audi R8, his knuckles white against the black leather. He wasn't supposed to be driving through this godforsaken stretch of highway, but circumstances had changed everything. The package in his trunk wasn't just cargo anymore. It was evidence that could bring down one of the most powerful criminal organizations on the West Coast. His phone buzzed in the cup holder. He glanced at it briefly. Another missed call from Sarah. His heart clenched. She didn't know where he was, didn't know what he'd gotten himself into. 3 days ago, he was just a courier, a driver who asked no questions and delivered packages for cash. Now he was a marked man, racing against time with information that made him more valuable dead than alive. The road stretched endlessly before him, a lonely ribbon cutting through sand and scrub brush. Jason had been driving for 6 hours straight, fueled by black coffee and adrenaline. His destination was Phoenix, where a federal prosecutor waited with protective custody and promises of immunity. All he had to do was survive the next 120 miles. The rearview mirror showed nothing but empty road. Good. Maybe he'd actually lost them back in Las Vegas. Maybe the 3 cars that had been tailing him since he left the Belmont Hotel had given up. Maybe he actually had a chance. He allowed himself a moment of hope, a dangerous indulgence in his line of work. His mind drifted to Sarah, to her laugh, to the way she'd looked at him last week when he'd promised this was his last job. She'd believed him. He'd meant it. After this delivery, he was out. They'd take the money he'd saved, leave California, start fresh somewhere quiet. Montana, maybe, or Oregon. Somewhere with trees and clean air and no criminals. The GPS indicated a small town 15 miles ahead. He could stop for gas, grab something to eat. His stomach rumbled at the thought. But stopping meant exposure, meant vulnerability. The smart play was to push through, keep moving. Then he saw them. At first, they were just dark shapes in the distance, distortions in the heat waves rising from pavement. As he drew closer, the shapes solidified into vehicles. 3 pickup trucks parked diagonally across both lanes, forming an impenetrable barrier. Men stood beside them, 8 or 9 figures silhouetted against the bright sky. Jason's foot eased off the accelerator. His heart rate spiked. This wasn't random. This wasn't a road crew or police checkpoint. The trucks were too deliberately positioned, the men too still, too watchful. He was still half a mile away when one of the men raised something to his shoulder. Jason saw the glint of metal, recognized the shape. Rifle. His training kicked in instantly. Jason slammed the accelerator to the floor. The Audi's engine roared, the supercharger whining as 500 horsepower surged through the drivetrain. The speedometer needle swept past 90, then 100. The men at the roadblock scattered to their vehicles. Jason could see them clearly now, could see the weapons, the tactical vests, the coordinated movements of professionals. These weren't random thugs. They were soldiers, mercenaries hired to ensure he never reached Phoenix. Distance closed rapidly. 400 yards. 300. Jason's mind raced through options, calculating angles and physics. The gap between the trucks was too narrow. Stopping wasn't an option. Turning around meant driving straight into whoever was surely coming up behind him. That left only one choice. 200 yards now. The men were taking positions behind their vehicles, rifles aimed. Jason could see the lead truck was a Ford F-250, heavy and solid. The second was a Dodge Ram, slightly offset. The third was another Ford, older, maybe weaker. 100 yards. Jason's jaw clenched. His hands steadied on the wheel. He'd faced worse odds before. Not much worse, but worse. 50 yards. He aimed for the gap between the first and second trucks, where the angle was widest, where the weakness in their formation lay exposed. "Sorry, Sarah," he whispered. Then Jason Statham didn't stop. The world exploded into chaos and violence. Jason cranked the wheel hard right to the last possible second, targeting the narrow space between the Ford and the Dodge. The Audi's front end clipped the Ford's rear bumper with a grinding shriek of metal on metal. The impact jolted through his spine, snapping his head sideways despite the seatbelt's grip. Gunfire erupted. The distinctive crack of rifle rounds punched through the desert air. Jason's rear window shattered, spraying diamond fragments of safety glass across the back seat. A round punch through the door panel inches from his left arm, the supersonic snap making his ears ring. The Audi fishtailed wildly as it broke through the roadblock. Jason fought the wheel, countering the skid with practiced precision. The rear bumper scraped against the Dodge's front grille, tearing away with a tortured scream of breaking plastic and buckling metal. His side mirror exploded in a shower of glass and carbon fiber. For one terrible moment, the car slewed sideways, tires screaming against asphalt. Jason felt the sickening lightness of lost traction, the horrible certainty that he was about to roll. His life didn't flash before his eyes. Instead, he saw Sarah's face, heard her voice asking him not to take this last job. Then the tires bit. The Audi straightened. Jason mashed the accelerator flat against the floor, and the supercharged engine howled in response, launching him forward like a bullet from a gun. More gunfire chased him down the highway. A round starred the rear windshield. Another punched through the trunk with a dull thump. Jason weaved left and right, making himself a harder target, buying distance with every second. His hands trembled on the wheel. Adrenaline dumped into his bloodstream like liquid lightning, making everything sharp and bright and terrifyingly clear. The speedometer read 130 miles per hour. The engine temperature gauge climbed steadily into the red zone. Something under the hood was damaged, probably the radiator. Coolant oil or both were leaking, leaving a dark trail on the sun-bleached asphalt. Jason's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. The trucks were already moving, executing what looked like a practice pursuit maneuver. They weren't panicked. They weren't surprised. They'd expected him to try exactly what he'd done. His phone rang. Unknown number. Jason ignored it. It rang again. And again. On the fourth ring, he snatched it up and answered without taking his eyes from the road. That was impressive, a smooth male voice said, but ultimately futile. Who is this? Jason's voice was steady despite the hammering of his heart. Someone who wants what's in your trunk. Someone who's willing to pay considerably more than whoever you're working for now. Not interested. A laugh, cold and humorless. You don't even know what I'm offering. Don't care. $5 million. Cash. Untraceable. You pull over right now, hand over the package, and you drive away a rich man. We forget this ever happened. Jason's grip tightened on the phone. $5 million. Enough to disappear forever. Enough to give Sarah everything she deserved. Enough to erase every mistake, every bad decision that had led him to this burning highway in the middle of nowhere. No, he said. Then you're a dead man. Get in line. Jason ended the call and threw the phone out the window. It tumbled away behind him, bouncing across the highway in pieces. They were tracking him through it, obviously. Every call, every ping of cell towers, giving them his exact location. The road ahead curved through a series of low hills, the landscape gradually changing from flat desert to rocky terrain. Jason pushed the Audi harder, coaxing every ounce of performance from the damaged machine. The engine temperature continued climbing. A new warning light appeared on the dash. Then another. Behind him, the trucks were gaining ground. They were built for endurance, for punishment. His Audi was built for speed and handling, not for sustained chase after smashing through a roadblock. The damage was taking its toll. Jason's mind raced through options. He couldn't outrun them indefinitely. The car was dying beneath him, hemorrhaging vital fluids with every mile. The next town was still 40 miles away. He'd never make it. He needed an advantage. He needed to change the game. His eyes scanned the terrain. There, to the right, an unpaved access road disappeared into the hills. Posted signs warned of off-road vehicle use only, of dangerous terrain ahead. It was exactly what he needed. Jason waited until the last possible moment, until the trucks were close enough that he could see the drivers' faces in his mirror. Then he cranked the wheel hard right, leaving the highway in a spray of gravel and dust. The Audi bucked violently as it left the pavement and hit the dirt access road. Rocks pinged against the undercarriage like machine gun fire. Jason's teeth rattled in his skull as the suspension bottomed out over a hidden washboard section. The car wasn't designed for this. Every impact threatened to tear apart what the roadblock collision had already weakened. Dust billowed behind him in a massive plume, a beacon visible for miles in the clear desert air. Stealth wasn't an option anymore. This was about survival, about using terrain to neutralize the truck's advantages. The access road wound between rocky hills studded with Joshua trees and scrub brush. It narrowed quickly, forcing Jason to slow down or risk clipping the boulders that pressed in from both sides. Perfect. The trucks would have to slow down too, maybe even go single file. His mirror showed all three vehicles taking the tone, their heavier frames handling the rough terrain with ease. Men hung out the passenger windows, rifles ready. They weren't shooting yet. Too much dust, too much bouncing. They were waiting for a clear shot. Jason's breathing came in controlled bursts. Focus, assess, adapt. The mantra from his military days, from the life he'd left behind when he became just another driver trying to make rent. Those skills never left you. They just waited, dormant, until you needed them again. The road climbed steeply up a hillside. Jason downshifted, feeling the transmission protest. The engine temperature gauge was pegged in the red now. Steam whisked from the hood seams. He had minutes, maybe less, before the engine seized completely. At the crest of the hill, the landscape opened into a broader valley. The access road split into multiple tracks, a maze of paths used by off-road enthusiasts and mining surveyors. Jason chose the center route without hesitation, trusting instinct over analysis. Behind him, the trucks crested the hill. The lead vehicle was 100 yards back now, close enough that Jason could count the men inside. 4 in that one, probably 3 or 4 in each of the others. He was outnumbered at least 10-1. The center track descended sharply into a dry creek bed, the kind that filled with flash flood water during monsoon season but sat empty and cracked under the summer sun. Jason didn't slow down. He aimed for the center and let gravity take him. The Audi went airborne for a heart-stopping moment, all 4 wheels off the ground. Jason's stomach lurched. Then the car crashed down hard, nose first. The front bumper dug into the creek bed, sending a shower of dirt and rocks over the hood. The suspension groaned in protest, but held. Jason wrestled with the wheel, keeping the car straight as it bounced and skidded through the creek bed. The loose sand grabbed at his tires, trying to bog him down. He kept the accelerator pinned, using momentum to push through. The first truck hit the creek bed too fast. Jason heard the crash more than saw it, a tremendous bang of metal and breaking glass. His mirror showed the Ford nose-diving into the sandy bottom, its front end crumpling as the weight carried it forward. Men spilled from the doors, tumbling into the date. 2 down, 2 trucks still coming. The creek bed curved sharply left. Jason took the turn sideways, drifting through the loose sand like a rally driver. Dust engulfed everything, turning the world into a brown nightmare where visibility measured in feet instead of yards. Something loomed out of the dust ahead. A bridge, old and wooden, spanning the creek bed about 8 feet above ground level. The access road clearly went over it, but Jason was underneath, trapped in the creek bed with crumbling banks rising on either side. He had seconds to decide, try to climb the bank and escape the creek bed, or continue forward and hope there was a way through. The engine made a new sound, a grinding rattle that spoke of imminent failure. Black smoke now mixed with the steam pouring from the hood. The decision was made for him. The car wouldn't survive climbing the steep bank. Jason aimed for the gap between the bridge supports and prayed. The Audi shot through with inches to spare on either side. Jason heard something scrape against the door panel but didn't slow down. Just beyond the bridge, the creek bed opened into a wider wash, the banks lower and more accessible. He yanked the wheel right and gunned it up the sloping bank. The tires spun, clawed, found purchase. The Audi lurched up and out to the creek bed like a breaching whale, landing hard on level ground. Behind him, one of the pursuing trucks wasn't so lucky. The driver misjudged the gap between bridge supports, probably blinded by dust and moving too fast. The sickening crunch of impact echoed across the valley as the truck wedged itself between concrete pillars. 1 truck left. Jason found himself back on a dirt road, this one slightly better maintained. His dashboard was a Christmas tree of warning lights. The engine temperature was beyond any safe reading. The car was dying, burning itself out from the inside. But he was alive, still moving, still fighting. The last truck emerged from the dust behind him, relentless and unstoppable. The engine seized without warning. One moment Jason was coaxing the last drops of performance from the dying Audi. The next the motor locked up solid with a grinding shriek that sounded like the death cry of a mechanical beast. The sudden loss of power sent the car into a skid. Jason fought the wheel, managed to keep it straight, but momentum was bleeding away fast. The speedometer needle dropped like a stone. 90, 70, 50. The car was nothing but dead weight now, coasting on inertia alone. Behind him, the last truck accelerated, sensing victory. Men leaned from the windows, rifles ready. This was it. The end of the road, literally and figuratively. Jason scanned the terrain desperately. The dirt road ran between two rocky ridges, a natural choke point that offered no escape routes. Ahead, maybe 200 yards away, he could see where the road ended at an old mining facility, a cluster of derelict buildings and rusted equipment abandoned decades ago. The Audi rolled to a stop. Jason didn't waste time mourning the machine that had carried him this far. He was already moving, grabbing the aluminum briefcase from the trunk, checking the Glock 19 he kept in the glove box. 15 rounds. 2 spare magazines. Not enough, not nearly enough, but it was what he had. The truck was 30 seconds behind him. Jason sprinted toward the mining facility, briefcase in one hand, pistol in the other. His lungs burned. His legs protested. He wasn't as young as he used to be, wasn't as sharp as his military days, but fear and desperation were powerful motivators. He reached the first building as the truck roared up behind him, its engine growling like a hungry predator. Jason didn't look back. He dove through a doorway missing its door, rolled across debris-strewn concrete, came up behind a rusted metal support beam. Truck doors slammed. Boots crunched on gravel. Voices called out commands in clipped, professional tones. These men had training, discipline. They would spread out, establish fields of fire, advance in coordinated bounds. Jason had maybe 60 seconds before they had him completely surrounded. He moved deeper into the building, a processing facility of some kind based on the massive rusted machinery that dominated the interior. Conveyor systems hung from the ceiling like mechanical entrails. Ore hoppers stood silent and empty. Dust coated everything in a gray shroud. Jason found a position behind a control console near the back wall, where he had sight lines to 3 different approaches and the briefcase tucked safely behind him. He controlled his breathing, slowed his heart rate. The panic receded, replaced by the cold clarity that came with accepting your situation. He was probably going to die here. That was a truth, stark and undeniable. But he could still win. As long as they didn't get the briefcase, as long as the evidence reached Phoenix somehow, his death would mean something. Movement at the front entrance. 2 men, weapons up, moving with practiced coordination. Jason tracked them with his pistol but didn't fire. Ammunition was precious. More movement on the left, partially visible through a collapsed section of wall. Another 2 men. They were being cautious, professional. They knew he was armed, knew he was dangerous despite being outnumbered. Jason Statham, a voice called out. The same voice from the phone call, smooth and confident. You've had a remarkable run, but it's over now. Come out. Make this easy. Jason said nothing. Silence was its own kind of answer. We don't want to kill you, the voice continued. Give us the briefcase. Walk away. Live to see tomorrow. See that woman you keep a picture of in your wallet. Sarah, isn't it? Pretty name. Pretty girl. Jason's jaw clenched. They'd done their homework. Of course they had. These weren't amateurs. You threaten her, Jason called back, and there's no deal. No negotiation. I'll die right here and destroy what's in this briefcase before I let you walk away. A pause. No threats, Jason. Just stating facts. You cooperate, everyone lives. You don't, people get hurt. Simple equation. Jason's mind raced. They needed the briefcase intact. That was leverage. Not much, but something. He heard movement overhead. They were on the roof, trying to get above him. Smart. He shifted position, backing toward a doorway that led to what looked like an adjoining structure. Then gunfire erupted, not aimed at him but at the building itself. Heavy caliber rounds punched through corrugated metal walls, ricocheted off machinery, filled the air with deadly fragments and debris. They were trying to pin him down, keep him from moving. Jason ran. He burst through the doorway as a wall behind him disintegrated under sustained fire. The adjoining building was smaller, an equipment shed of some kind. One exit. No other cover. He was trapped. The firing stopped. In the ringing silence that followed, Jason heard boots approaching from multiple directions. They were closing in, tightening the noose. His phone was gone, thrown away miles back. No way to call for help. The federal prosecutor didn't even know he was in trouble. By the time anyone realized something was wrong, it would be days too late. Jason looked at the briefcase. Inside were financial records, testimony transcripts, wire transfer documentation, evidence of money laundering, human trafficking, political corruption at the highest levels. Good people had died gathering this information. He couldn't let it be for nothing. A shadow moved past the doorway. Jason fired twice, sent a mass. A man grunted and fell. Shouts of alarm. Return fire shredded the doorframe, forcing Jason flat against the floor. 13 rounds left. This was it, the final stand. The explosion caught everyone by surprise. A massive detonation from somewhere near the front of the facility, the shockwave rolling through the structures like an invisible fist. Jason felt the floor tremble, heard the shriek of tearing metal and collapsing corrugation. For a moment, everything stopped. The shooting ceased. The advancing footsteps hesitated. In that pregnant pause, Jason heard something new. Helicopter rotors, the distinctive womp-womp-womp of military aircraft approaching fast and low. He risked a look through a gap in the wall. 2 Black Hawks were dropping from the sky like avenging angels, and painted on their sides was the most beautiful thing Jason had ever seen. FBI. The smooth voice from earlier cursed, shouting orders. The men around the facility broke from their positions, running for their truck. But the helicopters were already on them, spotlights blazing despite the afternoon sun, loudspeakers booming commands to drop weapons and get on the ground. Jason sagged against the wall, the briefcase clutched to his chest. His hands were shaking now, the adrenaline finally catching up with him. He'd made it. Against every odd, against every rational prediction. He'd actually survived. The FBI moved in with overwhelming force. Special agents in tactical gear swarmed the facility, weapons trained on the mercenaries who were realizing their mission had just become a disaster. The professional soldiers knew when they were beaten. Weapons clattered to the ground. Hands went up. An agent appeared in Jason's doorway, rifle lowered but ready. Jason Statham. Yeah. Jason's voice came out as a croak. His throat was raw from dust and exertion. Agent Morrison, FBI. Are you hurt? No. Bruised, but functional. Jason held up the briefcase. This is what everyone's after. Morrison's expression shifted to something like relief. We've been tracking you for 3 hours. Lost your signal when you ditched the phone. Picked it back up when you stopped moving. Figured you were either dead or in serious trouble. Both. Almost. Jason managed a weak smile. How'd you find me? The prosecutor you were meeting got nervous when you missed your check-in. We had satellite coverage of the highway, so the roadblock situation. It took time to mobilize a response team. Morrison gestured toward the helicopters. But we got here. Not a moment too soon. They led Jason out to the facility into the shocking brightness of the desert afternoon. The mercenaries were being processed, zip-tied and searched. The smooth-voiced man stood among them, his expression flat and unreadable. He met Jason's eyes as they walked past, but said nothing. Jason was escorted to one of the helicopters, where a paramedic checked him over despite his protests. Cuts, bruises, potential whiplash from the roadblock impact, severe dehydration. Nothing that wouldn't heal. As the medic worked, Jason pulled out his wallet and extracted the photo tucked behind his license. Sarah, smiling at the camera, backlit by sunset at Ocean Beach. He'd taken that picture 6 months ago, on a rare good day when the world seemed full of possibility. Agent Morrison sat down beside him. She doesn't know where you are, does she? No, I couldn't risk it. Didn't want her involved if things went wrong. Things went about as wrong as they could, and you still made it. That takes skill and a lot of luck. Jason shook his head. Just stubbornness. And a good car. May it rest in peace. Morrison chuckled. The prosecutor wants to talk to you as soon as we get to Phoenix. Debrief. Get your statement. Start building cases against everyone involved. It's going to be a long process. How long? Months. Probably. You will be in protective custody throughout. No contact with anyone outside the investigation. Jason looked at the photo again. Can I make one call? Let someone know I'm alive. Morrison considered, then nodded. One call. Make it count. They gave him a satellite phone. Jason dialed from memory, his hand steadier now. It rang 3 times. 4. He was about to give up when she answered. Hello. Just hearing her voice made something tight in his chest finally relax. Sarah, it's me. A pause. Jason? Oh my God, where are you? I've been going crazy. You said you'd call yesterday, and then nothing, and I thought. I know. I'm sorry. Things got complicated. Are you okay? You sound weird. I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. I just needed to hear your voice. You're scaring me. What's going on? Jason watched the FBI agents loading the mercenaries into a transport helicopter. He watched the sun beginning its descent toward the western horizon, painting the desert in shades of gold and amber. He thought about everything that had happened, everything that could have gone wrong but didn't. I took that last job, he said quietly. The one I said I'd turn down. And you were right, I shouldn't have. It was dangerous and stupid, and I almost didn't make it. Jason. But I did make it. And when this is all over, when I've done what needs to be done, I'm coming home. And we're leaving California like we talked about. Montana, Oregon, wherever you want. We're done with this life. You mean it this time? I mean it. He could hear her crying softly. I'll be waiting. I know. I love you, Sarah. I love you too. Come home safe. I will. I promise. He ended the call and handed the phone back to Morrison. The agent studied him for a moment. You know, the organization behind those guys isn't going to just forget about you. Even with all of them in custody, there are others. You'll be looking over your shoulder for a long time. I know, Jason said, but I'll be looking over my shoulder in Montana with the woman I love. That's better than the alternative. Morrison smiled. Fair enough. The helicopter lifted off, rising above the devastated mining facility and the desert that had nearly become Jason's grave. Through the window, he watched the landscape fall away, watched the highways shrink to thin lines scratched across the earth. Somewhere out there, a group of men had tried to stop him. They'd blocked the road, brought guns and numbers and professional expertise. They'd been confident in their victory, certain he couldn't escape. But Jason Statham hadn't stopped. He'd never stopped. And now, finally, he was going home.